Hey everyone, it's Jill the Wandering Stamper. Today we are playing around with a fun and easy step fold card. I can't wait to show you all the samples that I made of this card. I got inspired to make this card while I was making my Christmas cards. I kind of had some paper I loved and I came across a card made with this fun fold and made my Christmas cards that way, which you'll see one of those. And then I started to think about it and I thought, this is the fold that you can use with so many different things and so many different ways. So we are going to make a masculine card today using the in color, some of the in color colors like copper clay and wild wheat, and it pairs really well with crumb cake. So we're going to play around with those and make a masculine card using the Forever Forest stamps and dies. And I feel like those stamps and dies haven't gotten as much time as they deserve. They're really, really pretty. And sometimes it's hard to come up with masculine cards. We tend to lean toward the feminine, cute cards. So I think this is a great example of playing with color and stamps and dies and thinking outside the box to make the perfect card for a guy in your life. So let's get the camera started or pointed down, I should say, so we can get started and show you how to make this. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, here is sort of our recipe today. We have some of this beautiful pecan pie ribbon. I love this ribbon. It's sort of crumb cake and pecan pie together. Super pretty, but not too feminine. And I like the soft texture. It ties in a bow really well. It's easy to tie. It's just super flexible. I really like this ribbon a lot. So we're going to use that. Of course, we're using the Forever Forest cling stamps. And again, I feel like these haven't gotten as much airtime as they really deserve. I love trees. These trees are super pretty, and the dies that coordinate with it make it really fun to create winter scenes, summer scenes, forest scenes. You can do a lot. It's not just for Christmas. And then I'm also using the sentiments from this Stamped with Love. I got this because, of course, I travel full time. And so I just like this post box and thought this was kind of fun. But I used the Love You Always So You Get a Card stamps on it. I thought that was really cute. So we're playing with this set that doesn't really get any time as well. So we're pulling out some things that don't get a lot of time so I can show you how fun they are. And then we're pairing our colors for our card. We're using Cajun Craze, Pecan Pie, and Wild Wheat. These colors go so well together. We're using the paper and the inks. And then we're also going to pull in some crumb cake. Crumb cake goes really well. And then I die cut some pieces ahead of time. We have mountains from those die folds. Let me just show you what I cut. We cut some mountains. I cut 3 mountains out because we're going to be using those. And then I die cut trees from each of the colors of the papers. I haven't decided what I'm going to use yet. So I just cut out a variety of colors. I like to do that just because then I can kind of free flow plan my card. And if I have extras, I just throw them back in the card, the stamp box, so that I have them the next time I want to use that stamp set. So here's what we're using. Let me clear this out of the way and we will get started. So we're going to start out. We are creating a step fold card. So here's the card I created my sample on. We're basically going to create something similar to this. It's just a simple card that's folded and stands on its own, and then there's plenty of room on the back for your message. So that's what we're creating. So let me show you how to do this. So the card base is simple. It's 8 by 5.5. So what I usually do is I'll go ahead, we're using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the 5.5. And then we know this is 11 inches. We know this is 8.5 inches wide, so I'm only cutting a 1/2 inch off. That's how. I don't want to cut the whole sheet of paper because I might want to use that for a regular card. So I end up with 8.5. I'm sorry. Let me say that again. I cut a 1/2 inch off, so it's 8 inches by 5.5 inches. All right. And then you're going to move your cutting blade down and you're going to score it on the long side. You're going to score it at 1 inch 2 inches and 5 inches. And that creates that stair step. So we're going to set that aside for a moment. And then we're going to grab another piece of paper. Here's a scrap I have. And we're going to cut that one 3 by 6. So I'm going to cut it 3 inches by 6 inches. And then we're going to score it at 1 3/4 inches. Okay? So we're going to set that aside. We have one more thing to cut. We are going to cut an accent piece, and you could make this any color. I'm going to stick with the same color. I'm going to cut that piece at 2 3/4 by 4 inches. I'm going to do 2 3/4 by 4 inches. Now this is a great piece you could use designer series paper for if you're making a different style card. You can use a different color cardstock, but it's going to be layered on here with a small margin around each side. All right, so you can make different cards, use different types, different papers, but I'm using tone on tone for this. So that's all of our cutting for now. I'm going to move this aside. I'm going to show you how these go together. So you've got your 1 inch score line, your 2 inch score line, and your 5 inch score line. So I'm going to fold my 5 inch, mountain fold, right? And then I'm going to fold a valley fold for the 2 inch and a mountain fold for the 1 inch. Okay? And I like to use my bone folder and get it nice and crisp. So now it stands up just like that. So you've got your little step. Okay, so then this piece here is ultimately going to be attached like this. Okay, so it stands up, and so the finished card is 5.5 by 4 1/4, or yeah, so a standard A2 envelope size card. All right, so I just wanted to explain how that all works together. So that's all of our cutting. I've gone ahead and die cut everything ahead of time to save us a little bit of time, so we don't have to worry about that right now. So I want to show you how to assemble this card and how to do your stamping. Let me grab a piece of grid paper. Now, the technique we're going to use today is a little bit messy, so you want to have a nice piece of paper down on your surface. So in the stamp set, there is this little snow, I call it snow image. So you can either stamp this tone on tone with the wild wheat, or you could use a Versamark pad and make it more subtle if you wanted to. Either way works. You could also stamp on and stamp off before you stamp onto your paper to make it a little lighter. So whatever your preference, you can't really go wrong, but all I'm going to do is stamp this snow onto my paper, easy peasy, like that. So that's done. So it just gives us a little bit of a background image, and I'm going to stamp off most of it and then give it a little rub with my stamp and scrub, just because I'm one of those people, if I don't clean my stamp right away, I will forget that it's not clean, and I will not only make myself a mess, but I'll make whatever's around it a mess. All right, so that is done. We're going to set that aside. See how nicely it's going to be offset once we layer this onto our other piece. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some stamping, but we're going to pull in our blending brushes and we're going to do some special stamping. So what you need to do is get either three clear blocks, or at least make one a longer block. So I'm using 3 different ink colors. So I'm going to use an ink color here, here, and then here. And I'll explain that in a moment. So we have our Cajun Craze. So I'm going to open that right here. We have our Pecan Pie. And we have our Wild Wheat. So I put them darkest to lightest. All right. And then I have 2 blending brushes. I have one that I use for reds, and I'm going to use that for the Cajun Craze. And then I have one for more like neutral, like tans. So I'm going to use that for the other 2 colors. Okay, so I have that. And then the next thing I need is a piece of scrap white paper, which I have somewhere. There we go. Let me just cut this off. All right, so we have our scrap paper here. And then I have 2 stamps stuck on this right now. So I have this large tree scene, and that is what we're going to be applying our ink to. And we're going to be stamping on this white piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my darkest color, which is the Cajun Craze, and I'm just going to put this block on there so it's inked up. And the reason why I do this is I found that if you rub your blending brush onto your stamp pad directly, you're really soaking up way more ink than you need, and it dries out your ink pad. So if you just stamp ink on your block, there's more than enough ink on here to do what you want to do. So it just saves your ink pads a little bit and your blending brushes. So I have my blending brush, and I'm just going to take some of that ink and I'm going to start putting it on my tree, and I'm just kind of dabbing. And if you want more ink, you can just ink up your stamp again. So I'm just dabbing my ink on here, just using up all of that ink that we grabbed, okay? And I just do that. If you want to add a little bit more, you can do that. But I like this because it just saves your ink pads a little bit. So that looks good. Just make sure you get all of the corners. And then I'm going to set this aside until I clean it. And I'm just going to do this. Take a lot of the color off my brush because I don't want to leave all that on there. So I just rub my brush a little bit and get some of that color off, and then just set it aside so I can use it again later. All right, so now I'm going to close this up so I know that I'm done with it. So now I'm going to go to the pecan pie, and I'm only going to stamp half of this block with pecan pie. And I'm going to start doing the same thing there. I'm wearing the wrong kind of sleeves for this today. So I'm going to grab some of the ink, and I'm going to go around to the middle part of the stamp and just keep working my way up. So you're blending a little bit of your color together and inking up the stamp. And if you want to make it a little, whoops, I almost forgot I'm only doing half. Make it a little more vivid, just add a little bit more ink, go over it one more time. You really can't go wrong. It's just a natural little, blending and coloring. So you just go as far as you want. When you're happy with it, brush off your stamp again. Your brush again. I can't talk today. Now we're going to ink the opposite side up with the wild wheat. Okay, plenty of ink on there. So now I'm going to go to the wild wheat, and I'm going to finish off the top of the stamp with the wild wheat. And I'm just dabbing it on there. This tall tree, if you wanted to, you could pull in some of the colors from the bottom if you wanted to. You can really do whatever. You could add a 4th color. You could do whatever you want. But I'm just adding this color in here. And just going to put a little bit more because this is the lightest color. But this is a great way to color. You could also use this technique if you're using a water, one of your water pens. When I'm coloring, let me grab it. Sometimes if I don't have an alcohol marker and I want to color, I have this aqua painter, and I'll do the same thing. I'll put the ink on here and then use my aqua painter to pull the ink and make my palette and mix colors and everything. So just a little tip, use your blocks. It's a great way to utilize your ink. All right, so I'm going to brush this off a little bit and then set this aside. And then before I forget, I'm going to just rub these blocks right off on my Stampin' Scrub, and they're ready for the next use. They come perfectly clean. So the only thing that you're probably going to have is maybe some inky fingers. I get inky fingers no matter what I'm doing, so not too bad. All right, So now we're going to get our paper back out. I'm going to just flip this over, get our paper out, and we're going to huff on this to moisten it back up. All right, put the moisture back on, and then I'm going to stamp down. All right, stamping down and giving it a good rub and pop it up. Look how pretty that is. This would be pretty for a fall card as well, but I feel like that looks nice and masculine. It's very pretty, it's very interesting, and it's going to pull all of our colors in beautifully. This is the one I did earlier and die cut. As you can see, by doing inking up the blocks twice, the color is way more vivid on this one. This one's a little bit lighter, a little bit softer, but they both look really, really pretty. So that's my technique for using the embossing brushes and keeping your ink pads from drying out. So that is done. We're going to move these stamps out of the way. You know what? I'm going to clean this one off too because I do not want to make a mess. All right. Love my stamp and scrub. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're going to pretend we brought our die cutter out and die cut that. So we have the pieces for our tree, and then we have all of these other trees right here that are ready. And somewhere in this mess, and I'm fearing that I have lost it. Here's another piece. I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock. We're going to be using that as well. So now we're going to start assembling. All right, so we're going to grab our base, and we are going to grab our two pieces here. Now, I like to put everything on in a certain order. That's just my preference. I'm going to put this piece on first, so I'm going to flip it over. Because the margin is pretty narrow, I find it easy to use liquid glue because I have a little tiny bit of wiggle room. If I'm a little off center, I can move it. So I'm just putting a thin stream of liquid glue on there. And then I'm just going to plop this down and center it as best I can. And because I'm using liquid glue, I can move it around a little bit until I push it down hard. So that's kind of one of the things I love about the liquid glue, is very forgiving. All right, so that piece is done. And now I want to attach it here. And the reason I'm putting this on here first is so that I know where my mountains are going to go. You don't have to put this on until the end, but I find it works really well that way. So for the back, I'm just putting a stream of Stampin' Seal Plus on the bottom and top end. That's all you need. It's super strong. And then I'm going to hold this closed and line up my bottom edge. You've probably seen step fold cards that are in the middle with things on either side, but I'm making this one so it's flush on the left. That's another great thing about this fold, is it's very versatile. You can create it any way you want. And so this folded part that we scored will now fit perfectly with a small little edge right here. Okay, so now our card stands up perfectly. So now we know where we want to put our mountains. So the reason I cut 3 mountains is because I want to have my mountains pop up. And let me move this out of the way so you can see against the white surface. So as long as they're not higher than the top edge, you can put them wherever you want. So I think I'm going to put my first set of mountains right here. So what I'm going to do is take my scissors. I've kind of put them where I think I'm going to want them. And now I'm just going to flip it over and cut it like that. Okay, so now I know I'm just going to have glue on the bottom. So I'm going to move these brushes out of my way before I stick my arm in them. I'm wearing this shirt with butterfly sleeves, and it's probably not a good shirt to wear when you're stamping because I keep wanting to fling my sleeves into my ink pads and everything else. So all I did was lay a thin strip down on the bottom because I don't want it to be up here because this is going to be sticking out. And this glue is pretty strong, so Now I'm just going to go in here and tuck my mountains where I want them. And of course, again, with the liquid glue, you have a second to move everything around and get it the way you want it. So that's nice and flush. So now I have this extra piece of mountain I could use if I wanted to, or I can grab one of my other pieces and create it a different way. So if I wanted to, that looks interesting. So I'm basically just going to build my mountains. So I think this one is going to go like this. So if I do it right here, that looks cool. And the reason I like to cut it before I glue it is because I can kind of eyeball what I'm going to do with the next part. So now I can take this piece and add it in there later. So I'm going to go ahead and glue. I know I don't want to go any more than halfway. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my liquid glue again. Try to stay in your camera. This piece can be glued. You just kind of want to be conscious of where you put your glue because you don't want anything sticking up where it's not supposed to. Whoop. This is why the silicone craft sheet is fabulous, because I'm not worried about that one bit. And I'm going to place this mountain right here, like that. Now I have this little piece I might put right here. I'm just filling in. And I think with this one, I'm going to add a dimensional and let it pop up. This is what I like about this kind of card, is that you really can get creative with what you're doing. So let me look at that again. All right, we're going to put a dimensional here and sticky scissors. I'm going to cut some of these little edges because it's too narrow right here to put a full dimensional. So I'm going to utilize that and put this. I'm just filling in my gaps a little bit. So now I'm going to put that one there. So I've got a little bit of stuff popping out now. So now I have one more piece, and I just want to figure out where do I want to put that. So I kind of like, I think I'm going to cut it right here. That way I can put this piece here. I mean, you really don't have to fill it in completely, but I like the versatility. All right, so we're going to use some smaller dimensionals for this piece. So this is why I cut lots of pieces of mountains, because now I can play around with them. So I think I like that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this right here like that. All right, and then really the last piece is optional. You could probably stop there. That's probably plenty. I'm going to go ahead and add one more, and I'm just going to put dimensionals at the bottom. Where are my bigger dimensionals? There they are. They were hiding on me. This probably is the longest part of making this card, is putting these mountains on. Everything else is super quick. But I think it's worth it to add this little level of depth to the card. It just makes it special. And I'm going to put a little drop of glue here and here just to keep these from flapping around. Now I'm going to figure out where I want to lay this. Now I want my dimensionals to stay below the other dimensionals. So there we go. I'm going to put it like that. So there you go. You've got this whole mountain range now, and it's got dimension. So it looks super cool. I'm going to stick this little one right here just because I have it left. So why not? I don't want to waste it. So there we go. So there's all of our mountains. I'm actually going to, because I'm a perfectionist, I'm going to take that off. You know what? I'm not going to use it. I'm going to throw it away. Okay. So there we go. So now the next thing we want to do is figure out the rest of our cards. So I'm going to simply glue our trees right here. Look how pretty they look with the mountains behind. It's just super three-dimensional. I love that. So I'm only going to put glue at, so this is already nice and dry. I love that. So I'm only going to put glue on the bottom. Look at this. I've got my glue bottle. My glue is empty. Where's my glue? Oh my goodness. Some days. Did I drop it and not know? I'm crazy. I've lost my mind. Where is my liquid glue? Put it in my garbage. Okay. Whew, Jill. All right, so we're just going to add a little glue on the bottom because I want the rest of my trees to stick up. So we're going to place them just like that. And remember, you just want to make sure nothing's going to be higher than the top edge of your card when it's closed. So see, everything falls within that empty place. And I usually give my cards a quick peek on the back, make sure no glue is showing, and it's not. All right, so that is done. So now we want to figure out placement of our trees to go over here. So I have all these pieces, so all I'll do is sort of just kind of take a look. And I cut multiples of this color, and I think it would be kind of cool to offset them a little bit like this. So I just kind of lay them out where I think they'll look good. So we've got these and these. We'll put like that. We've got one of these. All right. So I think I'm going to start out with the dark tree. So I'm going to flip it over and just add a little liquid glue. And I don't mind that my leaves aren't all glued down because trees are free flowing. That's hard to say. So I just put a little glue here and there, but I don't have to worry about every single leaf being glued. Just want to make sure it's going to stay put. So there's enough there. And then I'm going to pop that on there and just hold it for a second to let it stick. Okay, that looks good. All right, and now I'm going to do the same thing with this piece. You know what? I think we'll use dimensionals. Why not, right? We'll make that one pop out a little bit. So I'm going to grab my scissors that are for sticky things and cut some strips here. So we don't want them to be hanging over. And I'm going to just put those down the middle, wherever they'll fit, here and there. No, that one's too fat. This is a great way to use the edges of your dimensionals. Don't throw those away. Just cut them thin. And you can put them in small spots. All right, and one more thin piece. Just make sure when you're doing this that you only use your designated sticky scissors to cut these. You don't want to cut these sticky things with your paper snips because then your paper snips are going to be sticky and they don't work as well for other things. So just a little tip there for you. All right, and then I'm going to cut one of my mini dimensionals in half. Just doing a little surgery here to make these work. And I'm going to put one there. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. And there we go. So that should be enough to hold everything in place. So then I'm going to first I'm going to make sure everything is tucked behind where it's visible. A couple of these are a little bit visible, and you just scoot them with your fingernail. It's all you have to do to move them. All right, and then we're going to pop these in place. So there we go. So now it kind of has a little dimension. So now I think we'll go ahead and add maybe a tall tree here. You just want to look and see, where do you want to hang a tree, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on these. Let's see, put it back here. Look at this, I'm missing my nail polish on my pinky nails. This is called getting stressed out. Whenever I'm pondering things too much or trying to do too many things at once, I peel off my nail polish. Such a bad habit. And I go to all the trouble to make my nails nice and then pull the color off. It makes no sense. It's crazy. All right, so we've got a couple trees there. So you just keep doing that as much as you want. You can add as many trees as you want. I'm going to stop now because I don't want to make you wait all day. Look at that. Got a little glue on that one. So I'm going to move these out of the way, and we're going to finish off our card. Okay? But look how pretty. You've got 3 dimensions. So Wink Estella would be pretty here, and it's, like I said, it's still sitting up perfectly. So now we're going to work on the sentiment for the front. So I'm going to use the Cajun Craze and the stamp. Let me close my ink here. That says, "Love you always." I feel like this could be a very good masculine card, maybe an anniversary card or something. So I'm going to stamp that right there. Perfect. All right, and so because this looks rustic, I'm going to just, and this piece is torn, so I'm just going to keep tearing this. It's completely free form. Tear it towards yourself so that you get the torn part on facing out, you know. And look at that. It just looks nice and rustic. So I've got that done. And you get 2 options on the back. You could just stamp your sentiment right here like this, or if you'd like, you can get another piece of cardstock such as the crumb cake, wherever my crumb cake is hiding. Yeah, what did I do with my crumb cake? All right, one moment while I grab a piece of crumb cake. Oh, here it is. I found it. As much prep work as I do, I still forget to grab things out. Okay. So our crumb cake is going to be 2 7/8 by 5 3/8. So let's do the 5 3/8. This is going to be for the back of the card. Did I do that right? 5 3/8. Yes. 2 7/8. Okay. Oh, that's what's happening. I was trying to cut through 2 pieces. Okay. So this is going to go on the back like this. Okay. But before we put it on there, we're going to get our crumb cake ink. Because we want to keep that continuity. And I'm going to pull off these big trees and grab these little trees. I love these little trees. And I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to put those down here on the bottom like that, because you can still, it's light enough that you can still write all over this piece of paper on the back. And then the other sentiment that was in that stamp set said, "So you get a card." So the front says, "Love you always," and then the back says, "So you get a card." So now I am looking for my Cajun craze, which I believe just fell on my chair. Okay. Good Lord. You know, some days. Okay. So, where do we want to put this? I could put it right here over the trees, but I think this time I'm going to, I know this is out of your screen, I'm trying to get it straight though. So there we go. So you get a card. I thought that was kind of fun. So once you have that on there, all you have to do is flip it over and add your glue. I'm just going to keep going with this liquid glue. Hopefully I don't get it on this piece of paper. And we're going to pop that on the back. And we are in the home stretch. So that just gets centered. And I like adding, and again, you could use designer series paper. You could not put anything on the back and just write right on the back. But I like this little extra touch because it mostly hides the little seam that's right here. And now you have plenty of room to write. So all we have left is some ribbon. So I'm grabbing that pecan pie ribbon because it pulls in all of our colors perfectly. So we're going to put it right about here. So I'm going to cut the ribbon. And then I'm going to just use a little bit of adhesive, Stampin' Seal Plus, because it's nice and sticky. Get all these trees out of the way. And I just put a little dab at each end. Get my adhesive started. So I'm going to put a piece here. And you could probably use liquid glue as well. I like this stuff because it's so strong. Went a little crazy there. And so then you're just going to wrap it behind your card. Now you could go all the way around your card if you wanted to and just tie a bow. That would work too. I'm going to do it this way. And then I'm going to cut one extra little piece. And I'm just going to add a bow, a little knot on it. It's a guide card, so we don't need any fancy bow for it. So there we go. Simple. Just keep it simple. And if you want, you can even turn that a little bit. But that's all I'm going to do. And then the last thing I want to do is add our Love You Always. So I'm going to just grab a couple of dimensionals. Just put 3 of them. And then just decide where you want that. So I'm going to pull my knot down here, and I think I'm going to just put it right here, or you could put it up here. You could even put it down here. That actually might not be a bad idea to put it right here. So there we go. There is our card. Super, super pretty. It's got a lot of dimension to it, which I kind of think is fun in a card if you can get that extra dimension. So there you go. It stands up really pretty on a counter. I love having all those different layers of mountains because it just adds depth to it. You've got plenty of room on the back. So here's our sample we just finished. Here's one I made earlier. I just changed the location of the sentiment. And on this one, I added the "so you get a card" right into the tree line. It looks just as well that way. And wait till you see these other samples. Oh my gosh. This is from the Zany Zoo set. I love this. I stamped, colored, and die cut the alligator riding the bike. And the reason I used the stamp and colored him in is because I wanted to pull in the boho blue and the pumpkin pie. He's a different color in the designer series paper. But if you change your background paper, you could actually use the die on one of the die cuts in the designer series paper and not have to do any stamping or coloring. But I made him sparkle a little with the wink of Stella, so he looks like a shiny little wet gator. And then I die cut the balloons and added some string beneath them to give them that extra little interest. And then on the back, I stamped and colored in the little raccoon and gave him some more balloons, and just popped the balloons over the bouquet of balloons that he's already holding. So super cute card, easy to make. Oh, and I used the basic borders to create the cloud on the front, and I popped it up with dimensionals. And there's also a curved border. So I used those to kind of create the road and the clouds that are on there, and by popping it up, it looks very 3D. So there is that one. This is the Good Feeling stamp set. I used that for the saying, and I masked everything off of the saying except for the word "sending sunshine," and then just fussy cut those with my scissors and popped those on with dimensionals. And then this is the Best Friends, I believe is what it's called. I love her. She reminds me of my granddaughter. And then I cut the clouds. I did 2 layers of clouds, die cutting them using those basic borders dies. And then the Rays of Light stamp, I just simply stamped with Versamark ink right onto the background paper. And then I colored each of the rays with Wink of Stella. So it's sparkly sun rays. I know you probably can't see those on the camera, but it's really, really pretty. And then on the back, we just used the little dog from the stamp set to finish it off. So that is a completely different card than the masculine cards. So I wanted to give you all the feels, right? And then last but not least, this is one of the Christmas cards I created. This is from the Oh Holy Night set and the designer series paper. Oh, so pretty. So it's just a stamped silhouette or a die cut silhouette, and the background paper is from the I can't think of the background paper, but it goes with the Oh Holy Night set. It's so pretty. And then on the back, of course, don't read my messages for somebody, but it has a little camel die cut as well. And I used Night of Navy. Super pretty card. So all the same exact stamp fold, step fold card. Whew, can't talk. But you get 4 different feelings. You've got a holiday, you've got masculine, you've got whimsical for birthday, for kids, for adults, whatever. So here's all my samples. I hope you think this card is as cool as I do. It's super fun to make. You can be as simple or as intricate as you want with it, which is what I like. Some days you have some time to just really play with a card design, and you can make this as fancy and intricate as you want, or just simply make it a simple card. Just put a few things on it and you're ready to go. So as always, I will have a link below to my website, which has my blog, and it will have all of the cutting dimensions and products and colors that I used. If you like this video, I post them every Wednesday, so you can just like and subscribe to my channel so you'll get notified of every video each week. I love to respond to messages, so if you have any comments, what you love about this card, or questions about the products, please message me. Otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday, and I hope you get a chance to craft today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jill, the Wandering Stamper.